After my CEO wife and I divorced, her best friend couldn't help but tease her. I really don't get it. Ethan didn't want to marry you, so you threatened suicide to make him stay. So why are you still stringing along that male secretary? Hearing this, Chloe frowned. Are you insane? Who said I'm involved with Sebastian? Her friend's smile froze, her expression a mixture of shock and disbelief. Wait, you don't like Sebastian? You defend him constantly. You even hid from Ethan that you had a child with him. For the past few years, it was an open secret that Chloe's business trips were a cover. She was actually hiding from her husband, having a child with Sebastian abroad. Everyone just assumed her heart was divided. But I found out anyway. After 5 years of marriage, a child's birthday invitation suddenly popped up on my phone. The sender quickly deleted it, but not before I saw it. The mother's name on the invitation was my wife. The next day, I found the venue. At the bustling party, a little boy, his hand held gently by Chloe, was smiling as he made a wish. The boy said, "My birthday wish is for Mommy to spend more time with me and Daddy." The man beside him ruffled his hair with a broad smile. "I have the same wish, for our family of 3 to be happy together, always." My mind went blank, my body numb with shock. I even recognized several familiar faces among the guests. I just stood there, paralyzed, watching the sweet family of 3, the corners of my eyes burning red, lacking the courage to rush forward and confront them. I turned and walked away, dialing her number. After a moment, she answered, and I could faintly hear the noisy party in the background. Chloe's voice was soft. "Ethan, what's up? I wasn't expecting your call." I watched Chloe step out of the banquet hall. Her graceful, elegant figure stood out in the crowd, impossible to ignore. "Where are you right now?" She laughed lightly. "I just got out of a meeting. I'm at the farmer's market picking out a gift for you. Did you miss me?" Watching her lie so effortlessly from a distance, a sharp pain pierced my heart, and tears streamed down my face. I thought back on all her business trips over the years. It hit me then that I had trusted her too much, never once questioning how many of those trips were real and how many were lies. In the distance, the little boy ran out of the hall, jogging toward her and yelling, "Mommy!" Chloe rushed over and covered his mouth before speaking into the phone. "Ethan, it's too loud here at the market. I'll call you when I get back later." With a quick bye, she hung up. Listening to the dial tone, I watched her scoop the little boy into a loving embrace, kiss his forehead, and head back into the party. Such a devoted mother. I looked away with a self-deprecating smile, the realization that I'd been kept in the dark for so many years, leaving me utterly disheartened. I pulled out my phone and dialed another number. "Ms. Sullivan, I'm ready to join the private intensive training program. Can you please arrange for me to leave the country as soon as possible?" After hanging up, I went straight home. The sight of our matching slippers by the door, our matching pajamas, toothbrushes, and towels, all these things that once symbolized our happiness now just made my stomach turn. I packed up every couple's item and threw them in the trash. Then I started packing my own belongings to ship to my old apartment. The following evening, Chloe finally came home. She rushed in, dropped her bags, and ran into the kitchen, wrapping her arms around me from behind as I was cooking. Her voice trembled with emotion as she nuzzled her head against my hair. "Ethan, I missed you so much I thought I was going to go crazy." Before, I would have eagerly turned to kiss her. But now, my body went rigid with repulsion. The thought of her being intimate with that other man, holding me with the same arms she used to hold his child, made my stomach churn. I pushed her away, gasping for air. "Ethan, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" Sensing my reaction, Chloe leaned in, concerned. "Here, let me show you the gifts I brought you." Staring at the pile of souvenirs, all meant to prove she'd really been abroad, I couldn't bear to think about the lengths Chloe had gone to deceive me. Chloe gripped my hand, her voice edged with anxiety. "You always get so excited when I bring you gifts. Are you really feeling that unwell today?" I looked up, my eyes red-rimmed. "Chloe, let's have a baby." Chloe was about to respond when she suddenly gagged and ran to the bathroom, shutting the door behind her. She was in there for a long time, and just as she came out, her phone rang. One look at the screen and her expression turned serious. She immediately stood up to leave. "Ethan, let's talk about the baby in a couple of years. Something urgent has come up at work. I have to go." Before I could answer, she leaned in for a quick kiss and left without a backward glance. I closed my eyes, a tear escaping, but the sharp pain in my heart was quickly overwhelmed by a wave of nausea. I scrambled out of bed and ran barefoot to the bathroom, vomiting until I was empty. And there, in the trash, I saw it, a pregnancy test. Chloe was pregnant. Thinking of her other child, My eyes welled up. Whose baby was this? The next day, a sharp pain in my stomach sent me to the hospital. As I walked heavily down the hall, a familiar sight at the far end made me freeze. It was Chloe, wrapped in another man's arms, being comforted gently as he looked at her with eyes full of adoration. I was too far away to hear their words, but the scene was painfully clear. As they started walking my way, I ducked into an alcove. The man's voice was choked with emotion, his words dripping with a pitiful vulnerability. "Chloe, you didn't come home all night. Do you think Ethan will get suspicious?" At the mention of my name, Chloe frowned. "He trusts me." Before he could continue, Chloe cut him off, her tone laced with resignation. "Sebastian, besides the title of my husband, I can give you and our son anything you want." Though he looked hurt, he had no choice but to agree. Sensing his disappointment, Chloe pulled him into an embrace and kissed him. "And now we have another beautiful baby on the way." They walked off, their voices fading, but not before Sebastian, the man beside her, cast a deliberate glance from the corner of his eye right toward the alcove where I was hiding. I didn't emerge until they were long gone, tears streaming down my face. In that moment, my heart felt like it was being crushed, the pain unbearable. "Chloe, was this really how you saw me? I told you when we first got together that if you ever betrayed me, no matter how much I loved you, I would leave without a second thought." Now, it was time to keep that promise. I tracked down Sebastian's address and found him at a local coffee shop. Our eyes met across the room. He stared at me, a look of fearful defensiveness on his face. "Sir, are you here to get revenge on my son and me?" My expression was cold as I spoke. "The fact that I'm here means I know everything. You can play the victim all you want, but I'm not Chloe. I won't fall for it." The pitiful act on Sebastian's face began to crack. He sized me up with a defiant look and warned in a low voice, "Since you know, then I suggest you leave. Chloe and I already have a child together." I pulled the divorce papers from my bag and set them on the table. "If you can get her to sign these, I'll disappear." Sebastian seemed surprised by how easily I was giving up. He eyed me suspiciously before taking the papers. "You're sure?" I didn't respond, my silence serving as confirmation. We exchanged numbers and I left. That night, Chloe came home drunk. She threw her arms around me, slurring, "Ethan, what happened to you? I don't understand how we ended up like this." I ignored her attempt to play the victim and replied coldly, "Chloe, let's get a divorce." Her movements slowed as the words seemed to sober her up. She clung to me tighter, shaking her head. "No, Ethan, I'm not divorcing you." Her voice was choked with sobs as she mumbled the words over and over. I started to speak again but felt my shoulder grow damp. Chloe was crying. I froze, momentarily unsure of what to do. But then I remembered, this was how she always manipulated me. I tried to pull her hands off me, but her grip was too strong. I gave up and said calmly, "Fine, we won't get a divorce." I soothed her until she finally lay down to rest. Just then, my phone screen lit up. It was a text from Sebastian. "Be at Chloe's office tomorrow at 10 a.m. I shut off my phone and slept in the guest room. The next morning, Chloe was already gone. A sticky note on the nightstand read, "Honey, remember to eat breakfast. Please don't be angry." I glanced at it once before crumpling it up and tossing it in the trash. After a quick bite, I headed to the Sterling Corporation headquarters. But when I reached her office, what I saw through the crack in the door made me freeze. Sebastian was leaning against her desk while Chloe stood intimately close in front of him. The charged atmosphere and their hushed, flirtatious conversation drifted through the gap in the door. Sebastian chuckled. "Aren't you worried someone will see us and tell Ethan?" Chloe, completely lost in the moment, replied in a low, husky voice, "Don't talk about other men when you're with me. And even if he does find out, I'll make sure you and the children are taken care of." She seemed to be punishing him with her tone, silencing him. But he just smiled, and I saw his eyes flick toward the door, a triumphant smirk playing on his lips. I stumbled back from the door, nearly falling. My wife, the woman I loved, was in her office, fooling around with another man. A wave of nausea washed over me, and I couldn't stop it. I rushed to the men's room and emptied my stomach. As I came out of the restroom, I found Sebastian leaning against the wall, a wide grin on his face. "So, I assume you saw everything," I asked. "What if I did? Where are the papers? Did she sign them?" He handed me the divorce papers with a bored expression. "You know, she signed them the second I gave them to her." "Did it ever occur to you, Ethan, to wonder what she would have done if you'd given them to her yourself? Refuse, or sign them just as gladly?" His smooth voice held a hint of unreadable amusement. He gave me one last cryptic look before turning and walking away. I opened the folder. There, in bold ink, was Chloe's signature. I let out a bitter laugh. Maybe he was right. With the signed papers in hand, I went to my lawyer to finalize everything. Afterward, I went home to pack the last of my things, planning to leave for good the next morning. I couldn't spend another night under the same roof as her. But Chloe came home that night. I expected her to try and explain the past few days, or maybe confront me about being at her office. Instead, she stormed up to me and grabbed my shoulders. "Ethan, where did you send Noah?" Her voice shook with panic, and her eyes were bloodshot. I stood there, stunned by the frantic look on her face, but I kept my own expression calm. "Chloe, do you have any idea what you're talking about?" Chloe's tone softened into a desperate plea. "Ethan, I know you were at the office this morning, and yes, I betrayed you, and I am so sorry, but how could you take it out on Noah? He's just a little boy." As she spoke, the meaning became clear. The boy, Noah, was missing, and Chloe's first, immediate assumption was that I was responsible. I let out a bitter laugh and shook her hands off me, my disappointment absolute. "I have no idea what you're talking about, but since you're admitting you cheated, it saves us a lot of trouble. Let's get divorced." I turned to put some distance between us, but she grabbed me again. "We can talk about the divorce later. Ethan, just tell me where Noah is. Why would you do something to hurt a child?" Her grip was so tight I stumbled. I stared at her in despair. "I didn't do anything to the boy." Just as I expected, Chloe sneered and shook her head. "If anything happens to Noah while he's with you, I swear I will never forgive you." I looked at her as if she were a stranger. "You're wasting your time asking me. You should be out there looking for him. The only thing I can tell you is that I don't know where he is." Each word I spoke chipped away at the last vestiges of affection I had for her, until there was nothing left but ash. Her eyes were red with panic. The moment her phone rang, she shoved me away to answer it. "Sebastian, is there any news about our son?" She didn't even notice that her shove had sent me sprawling to the floor. Apparently getting the information she needed, she rushed out of the house without a single glance back. The front door slammed shut, leaving me on the floor. A strange, sharp pain in my abdomen made my body tremble, and a cold sweat broke out over my skin despite the warm 85-degree night. A horrifying realization dawned on me, and I desperately crawled toward my phone on the floor. Every inch of movement sent waves of agony through my stomach. The second my fingers closed around it, I dialed 911, passing out just after the call connected. The sharp smell of antiseptic filled my nose. I heard faint crying nearby as I slowly opened my eyes. My childhood friend, Rachel, who had been crying quietly by the window, quickly wiped her tears and rushed to my bedside. She forced a smile. "You're awake. How are you feeling? Does anything hurt?" I shook my head, my voice hoarse. "Why were you crying?" "I'm okay." After Rachel helped me sit up, I squeezed her hand and tried to smile. "I'm a little hungry. Could you get me something to eat?" Wiping away fresh tears, Rachel nodded. "Okay, I'll be right back." She turned and left the room. As the door clicked shut, I let my eyes fall closed. A few minutes later, the door swung open. I thought it was Rachel, but when I looked up, several large men were storming into the room. A sense of dread washed over me. I tried to get out of bed, but one of them grabbed me and yanked me back. "Don't move," one of them growled. Something sharp pressed against my side, hard enough that I knew it would pierce my skin with the slightest pressure. My body went rigid, my face pale. "What do you want?" The next second, a hand clamped over my mouth. I struggled wildly, but my vision started to blur and darken until I lost consciousness completely. When I woke again, I was in complete darkness. I felt a surge of panic, disoriented and confused. I tried to move and realized there was a bag over my head, blinding me. I could feel the wind on my skin and the damp salt spray in the air. The ocean. I had just processed where I was when a familiar laugh echoed nearby. "Ethan, I never thought the next time we met, you'd be in a situation like this." My entire body tensed. Even without seeing him, I could perfectly picture the triumphant smirk on Sebastian's face. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. "Sebastian, why did you bring me here?" His laughter grew closer. "Oh, I'm not powerful enough to have you taken from a hospital. Chloe was the one who said it. She said you hurt Noah, and she would never let you get away with it." Every word was like a dull blade twisting in my chest. The pain was immense, but I couldn't cry. I pushed down my fear and asked, "So what are you going to do to me?" The amusement in Sebastian's voice was unmistakable. "Make you disappear forever, of course." The words had barely left his mouth when a hard shove sent me stumbling forward. I fought for balance, but the wind battered me, my heart pounding in my chest. The gale ripped the bag from my head, and I saw it then. I was on the edge of a cliff. My body plummeted uncontrollably. I twisted my head back to see Sebastian on the cliff's edge, leaning over to watch me fall, his face a mask of smug triumph. Soon he was too far away to see. The rushing air stole my breath. Just as I was about to black out, I hit the cold ocean water with tremendous force. I struggled for a moment before everything went dark. The next time I woke, I was in a small, weathered cabin. I stumbled to my feet and saw a young boy playing in the yard. I realized I must have washed ashore and been saved by a local fisherman. After recovering there for 6 days, I got the call from overseas. It was Ms. Sullivan. "We've handled all the paperwork and booked your flight. Are you ready?" I said, "I'm ready." I looked out at the endless ocean, the memory of the fall replaying in my mind, solidifying my resolve. In this relationship, I had lost my unborn child and nearly my own life. A bitter feeling washed over me, but as I took a deep breath, my decision became unshakable. I had to leave. I gave the fisherman a generous amount of money for his help. Then I called Rachel to ship my remaining things and instructed my lawyer to serve Chloe the divorce papers. The next day, I took a cab to the airport. As the plane ascended, I watched the city shrink below me before pulling down the window shade. From this day forward, I would never see Chloe again. I was finally going to be free. 6 hours later, the plane landed. Coach Sullivan was there to meet me at the airport. After a brief greeting, we got into her car. As we drove deeper into the secluded training facility, I watched the landscape pass by, my gaze lowered. This time, I could finally break free. For the next 10 days, Chloe stayed by Sebastian and Noah's side. In the bedroom, Chloe held the handsome man in her arms. "Sebastian, I'm going home tonight." Sebastian snuggled against her, whining like a child. "Can't you stay with us for just one more night?" Chloe's silence was her answer. Sebastian's expression fell, a flicker of resentment in his eyes. His mind racing, he quickly changed tactics. "Chloe, I don't want anything from you by being with you." He looked up, his voice thick with emotion. "But what about Noah? If anything were to happen to him again, I don't think I could go on living." Chloe's brow furrowed. The memory of that day was still upsetting. If her security team hadn't found Noah so quickly, he really could have been hurt by Ethan. Thinking of her sweet son, she made a decision. "I'm taking Noah home with me." Sebastian threw his arms around her in delight. Behind her back, where she couldn't see, his eyes gleamed with cunning. With that other man out of the picture, all he needed was for Chloe to let him in, and the position as the man of the Sterling household would be his. After dinner, Chloe drove Noah back to her house. Listening to the boys' happy chatter, her expression remained placid as she picked up her phone and opened her iMessage conversation with me. The last messages were all from her. "Ethan, I don't even recognize you anymore. I can't believe you could be malicious enough to hurt a child. We found him. Don't ever let it happen again. You need to spend the next few days thinking about what you've done. Ethan, if you're willing to apologize to Noah in person, we can put this behind us. Where are you? Hiding won't solve anything. Even if you ignore my messages, you still have to apologize to him personally." More than 10 days had passed with no reply. At first, she assumed I was hiding out of guilt, and she used my reflection period as an excuse to spend more time with Sebastian and Noah. But after so long with complete silence, she was starting to get annoyed. She walked into the house holding Noah's hand, only to stop in shock. The house was half empty. She searched every room, and when she realized all of my belongings, right down to our matching towels, were gone, her face turned pale with rage. Noah, frightened, shrank back and tugged on her sleeve. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Chloe's icy gaze softened. She coaxed the boy to sit on the sofa, then strode out to the balcony to call me. After a few rings, it went straight to a message saying the phone was off. Chloe's breathing quickened, fury rising within her. She hadn't even finished holding me accountable, and here I was, throwing a tantrum, moving out and running away. She called her assistant to track my phone's location. When the result came back as a bar in downtown Chicago, she felt a surge of rage. Chloe sneered. "Good for you, Ethan. Ignoring my calls to go out drinking." She called her assistant back, her voice like ice. "Freeze all of Ethan's credit cards. Block all his transactions. And if I find out he's made a purchase at any of our corporate partners, terminate our contract with them immediately." After hanging up, she thought back on my recent actions. She decided that her years of spoiling me had turned me into this awful person. In the past, They had always resolved their issues calmly. They had never once spoken of separating. But this time, I had gone too far. Chloe called Sebastian to come pick up Noah. Then she got in her car and drove straight to the bar my phone had pinged. At the velvet rope, Chloe's elegant figure appeared in the doorway. She scanned the chaotic crowd, her cold eyes burning with anger. Her gaze landed on a familiar face. She strode through the bar, grabbed Rachel's wrist as she was taking a drink, and dragged her outside. Rachel drunkenly blinked her eyes open. When she saw Chloe, she struggled against her grip. "Chloe, you faithless bitch. I haven't even had the chance to hunt you down, and you have the nerve to come to me." The words were barely out of her mouth before Chloe slammed her against the alley wall, gripping her shoulders, her eyes blazing. "Tell me where Ethan is." At the mention of my name, Rachel's eyes filled with tears, but she quickly blinked them away and shoved Chloe back. "Where's Ethan? How the hell should I know? Isn't he your husband? The man you love so much? Why are you asking me now that you've lost him?" Chloe's breathing was ragged, but she had no time to argue. Her eyes darkened as she threatened, "I don't care what little game you two are playing. Tell him to come out and see me now. Don't make me use other means to get him to cooperate." Rachel laughed, a harsh, angry sound. "Chloe, if you're so powerful, why can't you find him yourself? I bet you weren't thinking about him when you were off playing house with your other man and your secret kid. Now that you suddenly care, why don't you use those other means of yours to go find him?" Rage swelled in her chest. For a second, she imagined what she'd do if she had a weapon. But Chloe grabbed her again, her voice tight with suppressed anger. "I'm not here to argue with you. Tell me where Ethan is. I tracked his phone. It's here." Rachel sneered and pulled a phone from her pocket, dangling it in front of Chloe. Watching Chloe's expression shift, she said mockingly, "You want to know where Ethan is? He told me not to tell you, but I've got a short fuse. So here it is, he's gone. He's gone because of you." Rachel was shaking with emotion, tears glistening in her eyes. "Chloe, people who betray someone's trust always pay a price. You will get what's coming to you. It's just a damn shame Ethan won't be here to see it." With that, she wiped a tear from her eye and turned to walk away. This time, Chloe didn't stop her. She stood frozen, the words hitting her like a physical blow. "Gone? How could I be gone? I was perfectly fine the last time she saw me." Chloe ran after Rachel and grabbed her arm, demanding an explanation, but Rachel just looked at her coldly. "If you don't believe me, find out for yourself." A deep sense of dread began to grow inside her. Chloe immediately called her assistant and ordered a full background check on my recent activities, including any hospital records. After hanging up, she paced her empty house, unable to sit still. Finally, she decided to drive to Sebastian's. Maybe he could offer a man's perspective some useful insight. At 1 in the morning, Chloe let herself into his apartment with her key. She assumed they would be asleep, so she moved quietly. But as she approached the bedroom door, she heard Noah's small voice. "Daddy, you said the bad uncle wasn't coming back to bother Mommy anymore. So why hasn't she come to get us yet?" Chloe froze, her hand hovering over the doorknob. The bad uncle. Her mind immediately jumped to me. Then she heard Sebastian's gentle voice. "Mommy doesn't know for sure yet, so she had to go check. Once she realizes the bad uncle is really gone, she'll come get us and we can all live in the big house together. Won't that be nice, Noah?" Noah giggled happily. "Yes, then Mommy will be all ours." "But Daddy," he asked, a hint of worry in his voice, "is the bad uncle really, truly never coming back?" Sebastian's voice was light, but held a sharp, ruthless edge. "Of course, he's never coming back, because he's gone for good." Outside the door, Chloe's fists clenched, her breath catching in her throat. If there had been any doubt they were talking about me, it was gone now. But why? What did he mean I wasn't coming back? Her first instinct was to burst through the door and demand Sebastian explain what he meant. But just then, her phone vibrated in her pocket. Forcing her emotions down, she stepped away to answer it. It was her assistant, his voice tight with panic. "Ms. Sterling, we looked into Mr. Miller's recent history and records, and we found something." "Found what?" The assistant's voice was shaking. "Ms. Sterling, it's Mr. Miller. He's had an accident." The words struck her like a bolt of lightning, leaving her numb and reeling. She got into the elevator, her voice a low hiss into the phone. "If you're lying to me, you're fired." "Ms. Sterling, I'm not," the assistant said frantically. "I've sent all the files to your computer. You can see for yourself. His social security number has been listed as inactive. And we got the report back from the hospital." He hesitated, then sighed. "Ms. Sterling, you should just look at the files. Mr. Miller, he's been through a lot. Chloe's hand holding the phone trembled. An answer was forming in her mind, one she didn't want to face. She drove home in a daze, rushed into her study, and opened her laptop. She clicked on the folder and began to read through everything, file by file. There it was, my death certificate, clearly stating my identity was now inactive. She remembered that night, how she had shoved me to the ground. She had seen the pain on my face but had dismissed it as melodrama and left without a second thought. Chloe's sharp eyes turned red, her heart constricting with an unbearable grief as tears streamed down her face. She collapsed into her chair, staring blankly at the screen, her voice a broken whisper. How could this happen? How could something happen to my Ethan? A full week passed with no word from me. Her assistant reported, Ms. Sterling, we can't find any trace of Mr. Miller, domestically or internationally. He hasn't contacted anyone. Is it possible that he's really... Chloe's breath hitched, and she shut her eyes in frustration. Find him. If you can't find him, you keep looking. A living person doesn't just vanish into thin air. Her assistant's voice grew tense. The last confirmed location we have for him was at the hospital. After that, the trail goes cold. Chloe's brow furrowed as she suddenly recalled the conversation between Sebastian and Noah. How had he been so certain I would never come back? After a moment of thought, she gave a new order. Investigate Sebastian's movements around that time. I want every single detail. She hung up, the feeling of dread in the pit of her stomach intensifying. The next morning, the results came in. Most of Sebastian's movements were routine, except for two instances. The first was him meeting with me at a coffee shop right before I disappeared. The second was him leaving his apartment on the day I went missing. Chloe immediately clicked on the surveillance footage attached to the file. The video showed Sebastian leaving his apartment and driving to the coast. It wasn't clear what he did there, but the camera captured him meeting with several unknown men. When she read the background checks on these men, her eyes narrowed. They were all violent criminals for hire. A frightening darkness filled Chloe's eyes. She immediately called the police. The police apprehended the men quickly. During the interrogation, they glared at Chloe with pure hatred. Even if you catch us, your husband is never coming back. That's right, he's gone forever. A vein throbbed on Chloe's temple as she lunged forward. What are you talking about? One of them sneered. You really don't know? We took your husband to Cape Tempest. Mr. Sterling himself was the one who pushed him off. Nobody could survive a fall like that. A cold dread washed over Chloe. She couldn't believe it was true, but the evidence was undeniable. When she left the interrogation room, the police handed her the complete file. She took a deep breath, her eyes filling with despair as she looked at the phone records, clear proof that Sebastian had hired them. I trust you can get him there. $300,000. I want him to disappear. If it hadn't been his voice on the recording, she never would have believed that the gentle, pliable man she knew could be capable of such a thing. At 6 that evening, she heard the sound of a man and a child laughing outside the apartment. The moment Sebastian opened the door and saw her sitting on the sofa, the smile vanished from his face. Noah ran forward happily, about to leap into Chloe's arms. Mommy! But he stopped short when he noticed the two police officers standing behind her. Sebastian forced an awkward smile. Chloe, you're back. You should have called. Noah shrank behind Sebastian, frightened. Daddy, Mommy? Who are these men? Sebastian shook his head, still trying to smile as he moved to sit beside Chloe. But as he did, a voice suddenly erupted from the laptop on the coffee table. Sebastian told us to grab Ethan Miller from the hospital quietly. We took him to Cape Tempest, and he was the one who pushed him. It was all him. The recording cut off abruptly. Sebastian, pale and trembling, fumbled to pause the playback. He looked up at Chloe's cold, dark eyes, his own eyes red-rimmed. He reached for her sleeve. Chloe, where did you get that? Is this some kind of setup? Did Ethan put you up to this? Before he could touch her, Chloe pulled away. She threw a thick file at his chest. And what about this? How do you explain this? The file contained everything. Records of him bribing the staff at the birthday party, irrefutable proof that he had staged Noah's kidnapping to frame me, and the contracts for the men he hired to kill me. Faced with the mountain of evidence, Sebastian was stunned. Chloe, please let me explain, he pleaded. Mommy, please don't be mad at Daddy. He's not a bad person, Noah cried, running to her. Chloe looked down at the innocent child and heartlessly pushed him away. She rose to her feet, her gaze icy as she looked at them both. Sebastian, I thought you were a kind, gentle person. I see now how blind I was. I've already called the police. You will pay for what you've done. With that, she turned to leave, a suffocating aura of fury radiating from her. Chloe! Sebastian lunged at her, tears streaming down his face. I just didn't want to lose you. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I gave you children, please. Just forgive me this one time. Chloe sneered and threw him off, grabbing his shoulders with a bruising grip. Her eyes were bloodshot with rage. Is this how you raise a child? Sebastian, I told you how important Ethan was to me, and you dared to hurt him. I'm sending the children abroad, and you are going to prison where you belong. Noah rushed at her again, crying and trying to push her away. Let go of my daddy. You're a mean mommy. The boy's strength was nothing against hers. The noise and chaos frayed her last nerve. She shoved him away and gestured for the officers to take Sebastian away. Sebastian collapsed on the floor. He looked up, his pitiful expression twisting into a vicious snarl. He screamed at her, retreating back. Chloe, you act so righteous now, but don't you forget, you were the one who betrayed Ethan first. You're no better than I am, he yelled. You think Ethan will ever take you back? He contacted me. He asked me to get you to sign those divorce papers. He was planning to leave you all along. His voice was shrill, his eyes bloodshot with hatred. Chloe, you come back here. If you do this to me, you'll get what's coming to you. I swear it. The sounds of his curses and the child's crying faded behind her. Chloe's face was a stony mask. Her fists clenched so tight her knuckles were white. She gave a cold order to the officers. Get him out of my sight. All the way home, Sebastian's words echoed in her mind. The divorce papers. A courier package was waiting at her door, and her heart skipped a beat. She tore it open. The words divorce agreement seemed to burn her eyes. When she saw my signature, it all clicked into place. The insurance policy Sebastian had asked her to sign for Noah, it had been this. Chloe desperately tried to recall every interaction we'd had over the past month. Only then did she realize, with a sickening lurch, that I had been pulling away from her, resisting her touch, and she had been completely oblivious. She walked into the vast, empty house, where every room held a memory of us. Her eyes reddened, and finally, the tears came, a flood of grief and regret. She had truly lost her Ethan. After dealing with Sebastian and his son, Chloe locked herself away in a darkened room of the mansion. She dreamt of college, of the day I confessed my feelings to her. My face was so young then, my eyes so bright. Chloe, the kind of love I want is all or nothing. It has to be just me. If you ever betray that, I'll leave without a second thought. The dream shifted. Now my face was streaked with tears as I said with finality, Chloe, you betrayed me. I'll haunt you for the rest of your life. After that dream, she fell gravely ill. In the enormous house, she couldn't find the first aid kit. She opened a delivery app but had no idea what medicine to order. I had always been the one to take care of those things for her, anticipating her every need. But now, her Ethan was gone. Delirious with fever, Chloe could only scroll through old iMessage conversations, trying to remember better times. Her finger accidentally tapped on an old video. It was from when they were first married, cooking together in the kitchen. I had playfully snuck a piece of bitter melon into her mouth, and she'd shrieked with laughter and surprise before chasing me around the kitchen to tickle me. They were both laughing so hard they could barely stand. The video ended, frozen on her radiant, smiling face. It was a picture of pure happiness, but watching it now, Chloe's body shook with uncontrollable sobs. Ethan, please come back. I know I was wrong, please. She hated herself for feeling bored in her stable marriage, for seeking a cheap thrill that had spiraled into an irreversible catastrophe. Regret washed over her like a tidal wave, and she buried her face in her blankets, her cries muffled and choked. Another week passed, and Chloe had completely fallen apart. Then, her assistant burst into the room, his voice shaking with excitement. Ms. Sterling, we found a lead on Mr. Miller's last known location. He might be alive. The life rushed back into Chloe's eyes. She shot up and grabbed her assistant's arm. What did you just say? We found a fisherman on the coast who rescued him. After that, we checked travel records. Mr. Miller's last known location was O'Hare International Airport. The trail goes cold after that. To Chloe, this was the best news in the world. She dragged her sick body out of bed, showered, dressed, and with renewed purpose, ordered her driver to prepare the car. I'm going to find him myself. As long as Ethan was alive, she would find him. For the next 3 months, Chloe dragged her ailing body across the globe. Using the flight manifests from O'Hare on the day I disappeared, she searched country by country, city by city. When her body gave out, she traveled with an 4 drip in her arm, driven by a single obsessive thought, find him. But 3 months passed, and she had nothing to show for it except the certainty that I was alive somewhere. In the 4th month, a crisis at Sterling Corporation forced her to return to the States. After 2 more months of working around the clock, her health finally collapsed again. Her assistant pleaded with her. "Ms. Sterling, maybe he really doesn't want to be found. Please, let it go." Chloe just stared out the window, motionless. She wouldn't give up. Just then, a burst of enthusiastic applause erupted from the television in her hospital room. And now, let's welcome our next competitor. Representing the United States, Ethan Miller. Hearing the name, Chloe's body went rigid. She turned her head mechanically toward the screen. A tall, powerful figure walked onto the stage. It was a man in an elegant costume, his smile brilliant under the stage lights. His performance was breathtaking. Sitting up in her hospital bed, Chloe's eyes instantly filled with tears, her body trembling with an uncontrollable excitement. It was Ethan. Her Ethan was back. After his routine, I was brought to the center of the stage. The announcer gushed, "Mr. Miller, we hear you spent 6 months in intensive private training for this competition. Looking at the results, do you feel it was all worth it?" The camera zoomed in on my gentle smile as I nodded. To be able to stand on this international stage and represent my country, it was worth everything. The spotlight made him look so captivating, so brilliant. Chloe was openly weeping now. She had seen him shine like this before, back in college, when he was the star of every campus stage. She had fallen completely and utterly in love with that man. It was the quiet routine of married life that had bored her, that had led her to betrayal. But seeing him now, she realized he had never changed. The only one who had changed was her. A look of fierce determination entered Chloe's eyes. She ripped the 4 from her arm and barked at her assistant. "Book me the next flight to France, now, and have an evening gown sent to my room." She couldn't let Ethan see her looking so pathetic. Meanwhile, in a state penitentiary, that same news broadcast played on a communal television. In a dark corner, a gaunt, haggard Sebastian looked up. Prison had been brutal. He was a shadow of his former self. When he recognized the man on the screen, his sunken eyes bulged with disbelief and rage. He dug his fingers into the concrete floor, his body shaking with a monstrous hatred. How could it be him? Why was he still shining so brightly? A guard chuckled. "That's the guy, Ethan Miller, won the world championship for the USA." Hearing the name Ethan Miller, Sebastian completely lost control. He lunged at the television, screaming, "Impossible! He's the one who was supposed to be gone." His fist smashed into the screen before the guards tackled him and dragged him away for another beating. But even as they did, his eyes remained locked on the smiling man on the TV, and dirty tears of rage and despair streamed down his face. Why? How could this be happening? In my hotel room in Paris, where all the athletes were staying, I wiped off the heavy stage makeup and looked at my reflection in the mirror. In just 6 months, I looked healthier, more alive than before. My body was lean but muscular, and my eyes held a new kind of calm, one that only comes from surviving a storm. I hadn't forgotten what happened 6 months ago. I was sure she had seen the broadcast today. It was for the best. After leaving Chloe, my life would only get better. My gaze fell on the gold medal sitting on the desk. I picked it up and pressed it to my lips. Just then, my phone rang. It was Bella. "Ethan, are you ready yet? We're all waiting for you downstairs. We're going out to celebrate tonight." I smiled and agreed. After hanging up, I sent a photo to a familiar number back in the States. "Rachel, did you see? This is my victory." After my parents died, Rachel was the only person I had left back home. This was the first time we had spoken in 6 months. When I left the arena, Coach Sullivan and another dancer from our team, Bella, were waiting for me. The 4 of us went to a little bistro to celebrate our win. Bella was ordering for the table, and she carefully instructed the waiter, "Ethan prefers his food lightly seasoned, so please be mindful of his order." Coach Sullivan overheard and teased, "Bella, you seem to know an awful lot about Ethan's preferences. It's hard not to read into that." I looked up at her words. Bella. She had been my training partner for the past 6 months. She just gave a helpless little smile, her voice soft. "Ethan's an amazing person. I think anyone would like him." Coach Sullivan made a few more jokes before finally letting the subject drop. We were talking about the competition when I started to feel thirsty. I was about to get up, but a bottle of juice appeared in front of me. It was my favorite brand. "Oh, I just grabbed one. If you don't like it, I can get you another," Bella said, her voice warm and pleasant. I turned my head and met her clear, honest eyes. She was just wearing a simple white t-shirt and athletic pants, but she looked so fresh and beautiful. Seeing this exchange, Coach Sullivan couldn't resist jumping in again. You two have a 2-week break after this. Bella, if you're really interested in our Ethan, right now, I just want to focus on dancing, I said, cutting her off with a polite smile. I put down my fork, my expression turning neutral. I'm not really interested in anything else at the moment. The mood at the table instantly grew heavy. Bella quickly jumped in, laughing it off. I was just looking out for my teammate, that's all. Don't read too much into it. And Ethan, please don't feel any pressure. I gave a slight nod, and the conversation slowly started up again. No one seemed to notice the flicker of disappointment that crossed Bella's face. As we were leaving the restaurant, a figure suddenly rushed out and blocked my path. Ethan, I finally found you. The voice was hoarse and exhausted. I froze, stunned. It was Chloe. She was wearing an evening gown that should have been elegant, but it hung like a shroud on her emaciated frame. Her once vibrant face was now just a hollow mask of exhaustion and despair. Her eyes filled with tears as she looked at me, the person she'd been searching for. She moved to throw her arms around me, to pour out all the regret of the past 6 months. But before she could touch me, Bella stepped in her way. Bella's tall frame blocked me from view as she watched Chloe warily. Ma'am, can we help you? Get out of my way. Chloe snapped, trying to push past her. I need to speak to my husband. The word husband made my friends turn to stare at me in shock. A storm of emotions churned inside me, but I finally stepped out from behind Bella to face Chloe. Ethan, she cried, her voice thick with emotion. I finally found you. I haven't stopped looking for you for a single day these past 6 months. I've searched so many cities. Ethan, please, come home with me. The proud, powerful woman I once knew was now begging in the street. But as I looked at her, I felt nothing at all. I raised my hand and slapped her hard across the face. The sharp crack of the slap echoed in the sudden silence. There, I said, lowering my hand, my voice like ice. Now we're even. I'm done living in the past. I'm moving on. I turned to leave. Chloe instinctively moved to follow, but Bella blocked her path again. Didn't you hear him? Bella's voice, usually so gentle, was now sharp and cold. He doesn't want to see you. Chloe stood there, lost and broken, watching my back disappear around the corner. She couldn't give up now, not after she'd finally found me. Back at the hotel, Coach Sullivan asked hesitantly, Ethan, that woman back there, just a stranger, I said, my eyes cold and empty. I told them to get some rest and went to my room. The moment the door closed, my strength gave out. I leaned against the wall and squeezed my eyes shut, the pain of the past washing over me. The memories I had tried so hard to bury were raw again, the agony of 6 months ago as fresh as ever. I had told myself that if I didn't love, it couldn't hurt. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Bella. If you need anything, just let me know. I texted back a quick thanks and tossed the phone on the bed. The next morning, as I went down for breakfast, I could hear people in the lobby talking. Who is that woman kneeling out front? I don't know, but she's been there since last night. Must be waiting for someone. My hand paused on its way to my mouth. I glanced through the large glass window of the dining room and saw her. Chloe was kneeling on the pavement outside, her body swaying as if she might collapse. I stared for a second, then quickly looked away. Do you want me to take care of that? Bella asked. I hadn't even noticed her sit down across from me. I looked at her for a moment, then put down my utensils and stood up. I'll handle it. As I got closer, I saw how truly awful she looked. Her face was a ghastly white, the dark circles under her eyes like bruises. In just 6 months, she had wasted away to nothing but skin and bone. She heard my footsteps and looked up, a flicker of hope in her eyes. Ethan, you came out to see me. Please, just give me 2 minutes. I just stared at her in silence. The words came tumbling out of her in a rush. Ethan, I know I betrayed you, but I never, ever wanted to hurt you. It was Sebastian. He orchestrated everything. He was the one who showed up with Noah at the party. He faked the kidnapping to make me turn on you, and he was the one who pushed you off that cliff behind my back. Her words were like nails on a chalkboard to me. I cut her off with a cold laugh. Chloe, are you really trying to tell me you had nothing to do with it? I stared at her, my voice filled with disgust. Did Sebastian force you to sleep with him? At the party, you were the one who lied to my face. With the kidnapping, you were the one who immediately accused me. None of this would have happened if you hadn't enabled him every step of the way. Every word was like a nail driving into her heart. You were never innocent in any of this. Go home. I don't want to see you again. No! I turned to go, but she grabbed my arm. Her eyes were bloodshot, her voice choked with sobs. Ethan, I was wrong. We've known each other for 12 years. Please, just give me one more chance. I swear I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I will never, ever hurt you again." I ripped my arm from her grasp, my own eyes burning as I yelled, "It's too late for that, Chloe. Our unborn child is dead because of this. How can I ever forgive you for that?" With that final word, I turned and stormed back into the hotel. Bella was waiting for me just inside the door. The moment our eyes met, the tension holding me together snapped. My legs gave out and I nearly collapsed. A pair of strong, steady arms caught me. "Are you okay?" Bella asked softly. I steadied myself and shook my head. We walked to the elevator together, and she said quietly, "We fly back to the States for interviews in 2 days. Try not to dwell on this." I looked away, uncomfortable. "You know I'm not looking for a relationship." Bella smiled. "We're friends, and we're teammates who have been through a lot together. Friends are supposed to be there for each other. Don't feel pressured." "I get it." I pressed my lips together and whispered, "Thank you." Outside the hotel, Chloe watched my retreating back, each step a fresh slice into her heart. The pain was unbearable. She didn't leave. Instead, she found out my travel schedule and booked a flight back to the States, one that would get her there before me. 2 days later, Bella and I boarded our flight home. On the plane, Bella asked excitedly, "You know, I haven't really been back home in over 10 years. Would you be my tour guide?" I snapped out of my reverie and managed a small smile. "Sure." I didn't see Chloe again for the rest of our time in Paris, and I assumed she had finally given up. Back in Chicago, the three of us, Rachel, Bella, and I, went out for dinner. Rachel asked what my plans were, but I felt adrift. The only thing I knew for sure was that I wanted to visit my parents' graves. After dinner, Bella and I went back to our hotel. I stood at the massive window, looking out over the familiar yet alien cityscape, feeling completely disconnected. My only ties to this place now were Rachel and 2 cold headstones in a cemetery. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Assuming it was room service, I called out and opened it without checking. The moment the door opened, a dark figure burst in, slamming and locking it shut. A cloth soaked in chloroform was pressed over my nose and mouth. I struggled, but my world quickly faded to black. I woke up in a familiar bed. Even though it had been 6 months, the sight of the room sent a jolt of fear through me. I tried to get up, to run, but my hands and feet were bound. I was trapped. The bedroom door opened, and Chloe walked in carrying a tray of food. The sight of her filled me with a helpless rage. I wanted to lunge at her, to hit her again, but I couldn't move. "Chloe, what you're doing is illegal. This is kidnapping, false imprisonment." Chloe turned to me, her expression calm, her eyes filled with a stubborn resolve. A strange smile played on her lips as she walked toward me and set the tray on the nightstand. She looked at me with an unnerving, obsessive adoration. She gave a bitter smile. "Ethan, I had no other choice. This was the only way I could see you again. It doesn't matter if you hate me. I just want to be with you. I'll do anything to make that happen." A knot of fear tightened in my stomach at her manic obsession. I tried to reason with her, my voice patient. "It's too late, Chloe. Nothing you do can make me love you again. We're past that point. Why can't you just let us both move on? What you're doing is a crime." I was so agitated I could barely breathe, but she just looked at me calmly, continuing as if I hadn't spoken. "Ethan, I just want to be with you. I want to make up for everything I put you through. Please, just give me a chance." I shook my head, a bitter smile on my face. Words were useless against this kind of delusion. She ignored my refusal completely. She picked up the bowl and held a spoonful of food to my lips. "You must be hungry. Let me feed you." I clamped my mouth shut, refusing. After a few more failed attempts, her resolve seemed to crumble, and her voice took on a pleading tone. "Ethan, please don't starve yourself. Please, just eat something." I looked at the face before me, so familiar and yet so alien, and a wave of conflicting emotions washed over me. "I don't hate you." A spark of hope lit up her eyes. She immediately offered the spoon again. "Then eat. As long as you're with me, I won't hurt you." Under her intense gaze, I finally, mechanically, opened my mouth. A look of pure joy spread across her face, but inside, I felt nothing but ice. I was her prisoner for a full week. She never left my side, except to prepare my meals. She worked from the room, slept in a chair by the bed, and even cooked with the kitchen door open so she could always have me in her sight. In her free moments, she would whisper memories in my ear. She talked about college, when I was training so hard I'd steal food from her plate. She talked about when we were newlyweds, and I'd bring her dinner at the office when she worked late. Her face would glow with happiness, but to me, those memories were tainted, spoiled. Every story just reminded me of all the times I was waiting at home for her while she was out with him. "Ethan, don't you remember any of that?" she finally asked, her voice laced with disappointment at my cold silence. "I remember," I said, my voice low and raw, each word tearing through her nostalgic fantasy. "But every time you bring one up, all I can picture are those disgusting scenes. If you really want to cherish those memories, then stop forcing me to associate them with this." The hopeful look on Chloe's face crumbled. She turned away with a bitter smile, her eyes red. The room fell silent, and for the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe. "Ethan, I'm so sorry," she finally whispered, her voice choked with suppressed sobs. Trapped in that room, I spent most of my days staring out the window at the unchanging view. I started a hunger strike, only allowing Chloe to force-feed me just enough to keep me alive when my body was at its limit. Eventually, my body gave out and I fell sick. Chloe sat by my bed, her eyes red and swollen. "What do I have to do to get you to accept treatment?" she asked, her voice full of despair. Her private doctor had told her my body was rejecting the medicine, that I had lost the will to live. I looked at her, my voice flat, and stated my only demand. "Chloe, let me go." Her expression twisted into a snarl. She shot to her feet. "Why? I'll give you anything, half my fortune, anything, just don't leave me. I swear I will never betray you again." I just looked at her, my eyes empty and tired. "I don't want anything from you. I just want to be free of you." Her chest heaved with rage. With a frustrated scream, she stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. A few more days passed. The training camp for my next competition started in 4 days, and I was still a prisoner. I realized later that people were looking for me. Chloe had just hidden me too well. That day, the door opened and Chloe walked in, her face pale. She sat by my bed in silence for a long time before finally speaking, her voice hoarse. "Ethan, I have to go out of town for a couple of days for work. There's food in the fridge. I imagine you'll be happier with me gone." She took a deep breath and stood. "The house is locked down, so you can't leave, but you can move around freely inside. I'll be back." She reached out to touch me, but I flinched away. With a bitter smile, she dropped her hand and left without another word. I waited until I heard her car drive away before getting out of bed. I searched the entire house. Every phone, every laptop, every device that could connect to the outside world was gone. Just as I was about to give up hope, I remembered. There was an old, obsolete cell phone in a drawer in the study. I managed to find a charger and plug it in. As soon as it powered on, I logged into Instagram and sent a friend request to Rachel. The second she accepted, I sent her a message. "Rachel, I'm at Chloe's house. Help me." A second after the message sent, the phone screen went black for good. It had died, but not before it had done its job. Then came the long, agonizing wait. I stood by the window, my eyes glued to the front gate. Just when I was starting to think the message hadn't gone through, 2 familiar figures appeared outside the fence. It was Rachel and Bella. I jumped to my feet and started banging on the window to get their attention. They saw me and ran over. Rachel was yelling something, her face a mask of worry, but I couldn't hear her through the thick, soundproof glass. I used hand gestures to show them that everything was locked. "What do we do?" Rachel paced back and forth, frantic. Bella's brow was furrowed, her eyes fixed on my pale, gaunt face with an expression of deep compassion. Suddenly, her gaze shifted to a large rock in the garden. She picked it up and gestured for me to stand back. I understood immediately and backed away behind the sofa. The normally gentle Bella now had a look of grim determination on her face as she hurled the rock at the window with all her might. With a tremendous crash, the window shattered, sending shards of glass flying. "Ethan," Bella called my name as she deftly climbed through the broken window frame. The moonlight caught her shoulders, and for a moment, I was mesmerized. "Are you okay?" Her worried voice snapped me out of it. I shook my head and let her lead me to the window. It was the first time I had ever really looked at her. At the training facility, she had always been there, quietly supporting me, and I had never acknowledged it. I never realized she had been by my side all along. The 3 of us made it to the high fence surrounding the property. It was taller than any of us, and in my weakened state, I couldn't get over it. I was sweating with frustration after several failed attempts. "Ethan, use my shoulder," Bella said, her voice low and steady. I stared at her for a second, but she was already crouching beside me, patting her thigh. "Come on, up you go." Looking into her determined eyes, a warmth spread through my cold, numb heart. They were like heroes, breaking into my prison to rescue me from the wreckage of my marriage. A lump formed in my throat. I didn't hesitate any longer. Using her leg and shoulder for leverage, with Rachel helping from the other side, I managed to pull myself over the fence. Bella vaulted over the fence right after me. The three of us exchanged a look, then ran, disappearing into the darkness of the suburban night. From a second-story window, Chloe's figure appeared. She stared blankly in the direction we had run, her eyes filled with a profound, desolate grief. "Ethan," she whispered to the empty night, "if you want to go that badly, then I'll let you." In the car on the way back, Rachel hugged me, sobbing. "Ethan, we've been looking for you for so long. Look at you, you're nothing but skin and bones." I hugged her back gently, trying to comfort her. "I'm okay. It's not going to happen again." Rachel looked up at me, her face fierce. "We should have called the cops on her. She should be arrested." I shook my head. "I don't want any more drama. Training starts again in 2 days. I just want to spend the time I have left with you." Rachel hesitated, but finally agreed. After dropping Rachel off, Bella and I went back to the hotel. We walked side by side in silence for a while before I finally spoke, my eyes on the floor. "Bella, thank you for what you did today." I turned to meet her gentle gaze. "Coach Sullivan has been trying to reach you," she said. "Chloe is clearly unstable. I think it would be best if I stayed with you for the next couple of days." I hesitated, but the thought of Chloe's unhinged behavior made me nod in agreement. As I looked away, I noticed a tear in her sleeve and the bloodstains spreading beneath it. I grabbed her wrist. "You're hurt. It's just a scratch. I'm fine," Bella said, trying to pull her arm away. "Come inside," I said, my tone leaving no room for argument. I unlocked my hotel room door and held it open for her. She looked at me, a soft, gentle smile gracing her lips, and followed me into the room. I had her sit on the sofa and carefully rolled up her sleeve. I got the first aid kit and started cleaning the wound. There were still small shards of glass embedded in her skin. I frowned as I carefully removed them with tweezers. "This happened when you climbed through the window. I'm so sorry. Let me take you to dinner to make it up to you." I was focused on her arm, but I realized she hadn't responded. I looked up and found her face was very close to mine. Our eyes met, and the undisguised affection and tenderness in her gaze felt like a physical touch, making me instinctively pull back a little. Bella seemed to snap out of a trance, looking away awkwardly. "Sorry, all done," I said, quickly finishing the bandage. I let go of her arm and stood up, feeling awkward. "You can go now." She seemed to swallow whatever she had been about to say. She stood, thanked me, and walked to the door. Before she left, she turned back. "Ethan, call me if you go out tomorrow." The door clicked shut, leaving the room in silence. Her expression from a moment ago replayed in my mind. All the things I had deliberately ignored over the past months came flooding back. The strange sense of familiarity I felt when we first met, the way she always gently broke through my self-imposed isolation, how she always had my back. In that moment, my heart began to beat wildly for her. We spent the next month back at the training facility. My days were no longer silent and isolated. An easy, unspoken understanding grew between us. I found myself growing accustomed to her presence, her quiet, steady warmth slowly healing the wounds of my past. Soon, we were in Italy for our second competition. On stage, I poured every ounce of my being into my performance, my movements strong and confident. When it was over, I had won first place in the men's division by a landslide. Backstage, I had just finished my acceptance speech when Bella came up to me, smiling and holding a bouquet of flowers. "Ethan, congratulations." "Thanks," I said, taking the flowers with a smile. "First place in the women's division is pretty amazing too." Her eyes crinkled at the corners as she smiled. "Maybe having you around to push me helped me do my best." We smiled at each other and started walking out of the theater, the mood light and happy. But when I saw Chloe standing a short distance away, the smile froze on my face. Bella narrowed her eyes and gave a small, humorless laugh. "Looks like she hasn't given up." Just as she said it, I felt a soft warmth in my palm. I looked down and realized I had taken her hand and was gripping it tightly. My face flushed as I met her questioning gaze. I took a deep breath and said, "Bella, can you do me a favor?" "What is it?" "Be my girlfriend." A look of surprise and delight flashed in Bella's eyes. She didn't hesitate for a second. "It would be my honor." She straightened her shoulders, squeezed my hand, and together, we walked toward Chloe. Chloe walked toward me excitedly, a bouquet of flowers in her hands. She stopped when she saw the flowers already in my arms, and then her eyes fell to my other hand, intertwined with Bella's. Whatever she had been about to say died in her throat. "What's your relationship with her?" she asked, her voice full of disbelief. Before I could answer, Bella pulled me closer, a proud, possessive smile on her face. I'm sorry, Miss Sterling. Ethan is my boyfriend now. I looked up at Bella's determined profile, a sense of peace settling over me. I let a small, genuine smile grace my lips. The sight seemed to physically wound Chloe. Ethan, this is just an act, right? She demanded, her voice frantic. You couldn't have fallen for someone else this fast. Chloe, I said, my brow furrowing. Why couldn't I? You're not dating. I checked, she insisted, refusing to believe it. She pulled a document from her purse. I know you're trying to push me away. Ethan, look, this is a contract transferring 70% of my assets to you. Just give me one more chance. What makes you so sure it's fake? I cut her off with a cold smile. Before she could answer, I stood on my toes and pressed a soft kiss to Bella's lips. I turned back to face the utterly devastated Chloe. Now do you believe me? Chloe's eyes were red with pain. She shook her head slowly, her hands trembling as she put the papers back in her purse. A bitter, choked sound escaped her throat. I'm sorry to have bothered you. Ethan, all that matters is that you're happy. She just stood there, tears swimming in her eyes, unwilling to leave, as if trying to burn my image into her memory. If you think you're bothering us, then please leave, Bella said, her voice sharp. And if you ever try to pull a stunt like you did last time, I will call the police. Chloe shot a venomous glare at Bella. I stepped in immediately. If that's all, we're leaving. Chloe, I'm moving on with my life. With that, I took Bella's hand and walked away, and this time I didn't look back. From behind me, I could hear Chloe's muffled whisper. Ethan, please come back. Chloe walked out of the arena in a daze, the flowers and the contract in her hands feeling like a cruel joke. She finally understood. It was too late. The last time she'd seen me, I was broken and alone. Now I was smiling and happy with someone else. That should have been her. If only she hadn't let me go. She realized with a wave of agony that she had destroyed everything with her own two hands. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, her heart leaping with the desperate hope that it was me, calling to tell her it was all a joke. But the caller ID showed her assistant's name. Ms. Sterling, her assistant said, his voice frantic. It's Noah. He's run away from the boarding school in Switzerland. He's missing. I've got everyone looking, but we can't find him. The news hit Chloe like another physical blow. I understand, she said, her voice cold and dead. She hung up, hailed a cab, and told the driver to take her to the airport and book the earliest flight to Switzerland. Before she boarded, she opened her iMessage conversation with me, typed out a short message, and hit send. Then she turned off her phone. As the plane took off, she looked down at the glittering lights of the city below and closed her eyes, a fresh wave of pain washing over her. Goodbye, Ethan. This time it's really goodbye. She repeated the words in her mind, but she knew I would never hear them. In the car on the way back to the hotel, I received a text from Chloe. Ethan, I wish you happiness. Reading those few words, my heart gave a strange lurch. I sat in silence, unable to respond. Back at the hotel, I started to head to my room, but Bella put a hand out to stop me. She looked at me, her gaze soft and serious. Ethan, I get it. You can't just erase 12 years of history overnight, but you have to keep moving forward, right? Her words snapped me out of my thoughts. I blinked, and a real smile spread across my face. I took her hand. Come in. I have something I want to tell you. We stepped inside, and the door closed behind us. I led her to the sofa. The sudden, serious mood seemed to make Bella nervous. If you're about to, she began, but before she could finish, I closed the distance between us. A playful glint appeared in my eyes as I looked at her. That part of my past? I've already forgotten all about it. I brought my hand out from behind my back. In it was a small velvet box. I opened it to reveal a pair of simple, matching rings. Bella, I don't know exactly when it happened, but I've fallen in love with you. Will you be with me? For real. She never expected this. A laugh of pure joy escaped her, and she threw her arms around me, hugging me tightly. Ethan, yes. I've been waiting for this day for so long. Her voice was shaking with emotion. I held her close, a smile on my face as my own eyes filled with tears. I pulled back slightly to look at her. So, is that a yes? Bella beamed. Of course it's a yes, my boyfriend. But then she hesitated, a serious look on her face. It's just, I don't know how to prove to you that I would never, ever betray you. I shook my head. I have a much more important question for you. I had been terrified of love, but with her, I wasn't afraid anymore. When Bella nodded, I leaned in closer with a smile. When was the very first time you saw me? I have a feeling it wasn't at the training facility. To my surprise, a deep blush spread across her cheeks. She looked down, a shy smile on her face as she remembered. You were a senior at my university. That one sentence brought it all flooding back. A montage of memories flashed through my mind, and I realized she had been there all along, a quiet presence throughout my entire college career. And I had never even noticed her. All this time, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion as my eyes welled up. And then, without hesitation, I kissed her again. As the kiss deepened, it felt like our souls were finally meeting. A single tear of joy slid down my cheek. I was no longer a prisoner of a toxic love. From now on, I would love who I wanted, do what I wanted, and live my life in freedom.